Our next guest is genre filmmaker John Luessenhop. John directed Texas Chainsaw 3D, and he also directed Takers. Takers stars Paul Walker, Idris Elba, Chris Brown's in it too. And John's going to talk about how he would remake Rosemary's Baby with an alien.
Hey, I'm John Luessenhop, and I'm here to pitch the 2015 atmospheric version of Rosemary's Baby, set place in the desert. I've been dying to do a movie that is sort of atmospheric, it's mysterious, and at the very end you go, whoa. And I've been a long time Roman Polanski fan, and so I go, what's wrong with remaking like a Rosemary's Baby for 2015? That's what I want to do. I want to start with a girl driving in from the desert. It's in Arizona, moving into a small kind of town that looks very 50s, but it's okay. She's not sure of herself. She's moved there with her husband from New York. She's a former actor. Well, I'd say former actor. She's the one that didn't quite work for her. Husband's unemployed for 4 or 5 years, and they had a rough go in New York. And suddenly they're here, and she's been apprehensive about it, gets here. The house is fine. I mean, it's better than an Edward Scissorhands house. Her husband meets her. He didn't make the trip with her. He came in front of her, and he's excited. I've got my job, and everything seems to be working out. He's got a bounce to his step, and it's all kind of new to them. And she, at first, is quite happy about it. That night, she's woken in the middle of the night. There's some screaming, and the next-door neighbor, a woman, has jumped out the window. She's killed herself. Kind of dismissed it, washed it away, but everything would be fine if she stayed there. The next day, the husband says, I want you to meet some friends of mine. And he says he brings over Steve and Vanessa. Steve is kind of gung-ho like Sophie's husband, whose name is Sam. Gung-ho like he is, but the wife, as the women do the dishes, we get a sense that she's kind of a shell of herself. She's not really all there, and she's got a sad side to her. And it kind of shakes our heroine, I'll say. So that night she goes to bed, and one of the things that she had done when she first moved in is she set these little chimes up that are outside the house. And we get this sort of first night thing where the chimes are going, where she goes downstairs and the radio is playing static. It's playing this weird Mexican music, what to do here. And it's on the floor in the living room, and she takes it off, and that's strange. And she suddenly feels like maybe something was moving around her. It's dark. And she hears a voice for the very first time. It startles her, doesn't know where it came from. Tells her husband then comes down, all the lights go on, and he can't find anything, and is all in her mind. It was no one. The next day, husband goes off to work, and she tries the radio again, and it's a big jump. It blurs on kind of Mexican music. And she's a little unsettled, but she decides to check in with her friend back home, and then she goes over and eats with Vanessa. Whatever she thought about Vanessa is continued in that Vanessa finally says, well, I have these paintings you should see. And these paintings are very, very eerie. They're reptiles, they're alien looking, there's long arms, they're dark. It's kind of foreboding, and like this woman might be not right. Vanessa explains that these paintings that she'd done are really from her dreams. This is kind of a little bit sparks a nerve with Sophie because she's had that weird night, actually 2 weird nights. Someone died, and then these weird sounds, and she's wondering what is it that is going on with me a little bit. So she goes home, and she tells her husband about Vanessa and her drawings. The husband, he mocks her. He takes the light under his chin, he tries to be scary, and it kind of diffuses it, and it hurts her feelings a little bit, but kind of makes it say, go away, like, this is not important. That night she goes to sleep. She wakes up, the window's open, and she goes downstairs, and things are moving in the darkness that she can't quite get her hands on and figure out. There's a swirling around her. This is an elevation from where she was the night before. Finally, she hears a voice that says, close your eyes. And it goes from there. Something grabs her ankle. Translucent hands or weird things. She's frozen. She can barely even look down. And she keeps hearing this lightly, you're perfect, you're perfect, you're perfect. She doesn't know what to do, and finally says, close your eyes. And she feels the sleep come over, and she blinks. And she wakes up, and it's 4:53 in the morning, and she's back in her bed. She's rattled by this. Her husband goes out to work the next day, but she suddenly realizes, I don't want to stay home. So she goes and she fills out a job application. She gets a job as a cashier at the local grocery store. There she does start to see there are other kind of bizarre women there. There's one that looks kind of weird that's loading bags, and people go, stay away from her, something bad happened to her, we don't know, but we keep her employed. So she goes home, tells her husband, I have a job. He says, that's insane. Why would you take a job? You need to stay home. You need to do all these things. It leads her into telling him about her dream last night, that it really didn't feel like a dream. And again, he kind of blows it all off and takes her to the front door and says, I bought a lawnmower today. Whatever that means. Like, we're part of Americana. I paid off all of our debts, our bills, to the point that I can even get a lawnmower. Everything is good. I don't know what's going on, but maybe you need to relax and that the world will get better again. The next morning, she has had a nice sleep. She goes off to work, except for before she leaves, she notices when she's putting all her clothes on, she has a rash right here. She's never seen that before. There's red lines emanating from it. What's happening to me? And that night, she goes home and tells her husband about the rash. And he looks at it, says, that's gross, but she also says, I feel weird besides just the rash. Something else is going on with me. After that, from her workplace, she goes to this bookstore that's near her place, and she meets this older man, refers to her as Juliet, which is his wife's name, who's died. It's a very eerie scene, but he seems like he possesses more knowledge about what's going on in this town than anybody, but he's also not all there. That night, her best friend from New York calls again, Sarah, and she tells her about her voices and the dreams, and suddenly she realizes when she's having this phone call, her shirt's on backwards. So she goes to work the next day, and she strikes up a conversation with the cashier lady, who's her friend, and her friend tells her some very scary things, that, this is a town where I came to, and I had a bunch of friends, and they all got pregnant. They were kind of weird. They went weird, and they were never friends with me after that, that she had seen spaceships land around there, and had an experience where they drove in reverse and drove away and sort of barely escaped being, she claims, taken by one. So she goes home, and it's dinner with, again, the foursome, Steve, Vanessa, her husband. She tells her about the feelings, and then she starts to tell the story of the woman cashier about how there were flying saucers. The husband, again, along with Steve, makes fun of her. Starts, talking about Martians and beep, 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 and it kind of makes her angry, because they said the common thing with these women was they all lost a baby. She's not happy. She goes to bed that night, and she tells her husband, fuck were you doing making fun of me like that? I was trying to tell you guys something interesting, but here we are. Last night's, again, a little different. There's a pitter-patter. It's a rain. She's not sure what it is. Then a loud sound outside. Here's the chimes downstairs again. And a twig breaks outside, and she looks in the window, and there, for the first time, is the face of an alien, a reptile, just like in the paintings from Vanessa. And she's not sure what to do, and she looks again, it's gone. But this time she's sure she saw something. She goes up to take a bath to settle herself, and as she pours the water and turns away and looks back, there's an alien baby in the water. She looks again, it's gone. The music that was playing stops, goes, stops, and then she hears that voice, would you like one? Referring to the little baby in the bathtub. One of your own. We find ourselves in the office of a psychiatrist who works for Quigley Tech Industries. She tells him about the alien baby, all these things, and she's reaching out, hoping for some help, and this Dr. Livings. And he plays it off, and he says, listen, I'll tell you what I'd like to do is I want to give you these pills. She's not quite sure about that. She takes them, she goes home, talks with Sam, and announces suddenly that she wants to have a kid, but she doesn't want to take these pills. But of course, Sam is saying, well, I think you should, but he backs off. This night she wakes, mariachi's playing downstairs, and feels like she's going to take arms against a little bit, grabs a big flashlight, goes downstairs, and the voice is, Sophie. And she turns, and it's Sam, her husband. He's turned the lights, and she goes, I thought I heard the voice again. And she notices this black mark on his forehead. And she goes to rub it off, and suddenly she's rubbing it all off. Suddenly we're staring at the alien's face, and it's saying, come to bed, nothing to worry about. And she sort of then wakes in horror. Thank God this was just a dream or something like that. And she looks up, and in the skylight, there's that alien's face again. Then it's gone. She goes back to the bookstore the next day, and she wants to talk about the wife. He's starting to tell her they put her away because she was having these crazy feelings, the creatures were coming to her in the night, and that he's starting to provide an explanation when, of course, right in comes Steve, Sam's buddy, to interrupt, and that she shouldn't talk to the old man because at work they've all said he's crazy. But Steve says something alarming. He says, I don't want you to end up like my wife, like Vanessa. And she doesn't know whether when he walks away, whether he's a friend or a prick. When she goes home, she finds a book. It's hidden in her stuff that was given to her by the old man. It combines religion and aliens, about women's sacrifices made to this. Even has a picture of the tiny little alien, a lot like the one she saw in the bathtub. And it talks about, suddenly at the back of it, there's attempts to make these alien-human hybrids. So she goes to the internet and she's working furiously to do this when in comes Steve. It says, look, maybe you should do these pills because you really are going off the deep end right now. She does. That night we see her, she's passed out, the pills are next to her. And in the morning, sort of everything seems fine. The birds chirp, sun shines, she slept fine. She takes a shower, and we seem like she's getting ready to go to work, and all of a sudden there's this black goo that is coming down her leg. She immediately rushes to the doctor, Livings, to say there's something wrong with me. He's out of town, won't see her, so she goes to the Quigley Center for Birth Technology. There's a new guy, Dr. Samuelson, says she's fine. He doesn't know what's wrong. But suddenly next to it is this building that's where her husband goes that she's never visited before. And it's much like a big space place versus a normal building. And she tries to enter, but her husband won't pick up the phone and no one will let her in. But she's starting to get a little frantic. I mean, this stuff coming down her leg was more than anything she could ever think was a dream. So she goes back to the bookstore. Maybe he knows something. I can talk to him about this. He's gone. The old man has been taken away. They said he's been taken back to the loony bin, and there's another strange woman there who tells her. She goes home, and she's had enough of everything at this point. This is too much. She starts packing. She's grabbing her keys. Her husband arrives in a frantic. I don't even know how he got home early, but none of this is starting to make sense to her. But she tells him this place is screaming of aliens, Sam. She grabs her, throws her, puts her in the room, locks the key. She can't get out, and she calls out for Sam. She feels a movement behind her, a movement in front of her, and all of a sudden there it is. An alien stands in front of her. The room is filled with them, everywhere. Come with us. The time is right. The time of the month is right. There seems to be this uber alien who suddenly appears. As he steps forward and touches her body, she's jolted forward and can't remember anything. She wakes up, it's morning. She opens the door to go out. Or Sam comes to the door, says, here, I'll give you some OJ. Everything seems calm. Everyone says, we were really worried about you. Dr. Livings offers her some pills to sleep, and he dismisses the black discharge. Vanessa looks at her, the one who's said almost nothing the whole movie, just goes, run. She goes to bed. While she's in this dreamlike state, this big alien appears and just says, it's time. She wakes in a daze. It's almost like she's not sure what happened to her, just like in Rosemary's Baby. The doctor thinks you're pregnant, and that's kind of why you've been not feeling so well. From there, we kind of cut. It's 8 or 9 months later. Sam comes home, how are my girls? And she seems to have a nice glow. The world has treated her fine for 9 months. She says it's coming. They rush off to the hospital. She's rushed in, everything is swirling around her. She hears voices, there's been a complication. We're gonna give you a shot. And you just hear from the hallway, her screaming, no, as she goes into this darkness. And she blacks out. And she wakes. She's just in the hospital and coming to, and the doctors tell her, you're just gonna have to give it time. Something happened to the baby. This is probably what happened to Vanessa, what's happened to those other women, all of this. Sam is there. And he tells her, there's an emergency at work, I have to go. Steve is outside beeping the horn, I have to go, I have to go. For a moment she stays behind, sort of depressed, and she decides, you know what, I'm gonna do something here. And she heads downstairs, grabs the car keys, and she starts to follow Steve and Sam to the Quigley Center. She goes in behind them. She sneaks into the building. She sees what they tapped on the wall. She does it. She follows them up through this elaborate hallways, glass, into the bowels of this science space-like center. And she gets in and she starts to see these walls, these rooms that are a maternity center. And we don't see them, but we can hear little babies' sounds that are mixed, sort of alien-like, these noises in her eyes, and she's starting to realize that basically her child is half alien. It's been harvested from her, and she doesn't know what to sense. She hears Sam's voice, just says, it's yours. He even has your eyes, and she's staring at this little baby that's hers. Sam breaks down, the husband. He says, I can't believe I really did this, because he can see the hurt that's on Sophie, and says, maybe I believed all the wrong things, but here we are. He's not going to survive unless you can provide the nurture to suckle this kid. Just like Rosemary's Baby at the end, when she goes down and she rocks basically the Antichrist. Our woman slowly starts to walk into the room to suckle the baby, and we fade to black. And that's our movie. I do think of Shailene Woodley only because I like that she has this fragile side of her, although she's quite resilient and strong, which is what I see Sophie as. And I see doing something else very interesting is her look, just like they did with Mia Farrow with the short hair, where she cut it at one point in the story. I think that we should have a change with her as well. For the husband, someone who's relatively attractive but can be believable to the wife, so it's not phony, but like Vincent Kartheiser, James McAvoy, I do, because I think you might want a movie star, just like they did with Rosemary's Baby, that it has some problems that you want to believe, that you kind of rooting for a little bit until midway through the movie when you realize, I don't know, he might have sold her out. But I think somebody of that ilk or talent too would be a good choice. For Steve and Vanessa, I see them more of going through the character lists of Hollywood without trying to go with a name person. Somebody who's provocative and interesting. To me, I'd even look at the stage people from New York. The Doctors, I think, gives you a great chance to delve into the older stock of Hollywood and maybe bring back someone that you might have seen as an action hero or this or that to suddenly play one of these more mature doctor roles. I think it would be fun. I think it would fit the genre also. Even someone like a Josh Brolin would work if you can find the right way to put them into this. Vincent D'Onofrio. These guys are selling something that isn't true, so they have to be believable to a certain extent. Well, I want to use the desert. I see this is in Arizona, so it is kind of dry, it is kind of ambered. For the night types of stuff where you have all your jumps and creeps, that you're going to play with sometimes even speeds. You want the sort of atmospheric, so the lens is never an easy lens on the eye. It's wider, it's tighter. Give it some kind of gloss, some kind of tint, and I don't know, for some reason green is something that I keep thinking about. Figuring what the aliens will look like is one of the toughest things to do in any horror movie. For me, when I did Texas Chainsaw, just figuring the mask for the guy took time. Here, I don't think you want it to be quite as literal as alien, but it has to be memorable. You're going to have to work with some artists to draw it, but I do think it has a reptilian, human qualities to it that I think the more human sometimes is the more scary they become, where they can show, because they can evidence emotion, versus looking just simply at a reptile. Or if you look at the head of a snake, you can't really tell if it's happy or sad. One of the things I want to emphasize, I've described a movie that's could be seems a simple genre picture. It's just not what I have thought. I wanted to do something that's elevated. I want to do movie stars, just like they did in A Rosemary's Baby or The Omen or The Shining. Richer, deeper, and I think the movie stars and the elevated resources for it would make it a much better picture. Roman Polanski took a novel that was the big pop novel at the time, a horror movie, and turned it into something greater.
What if Tarantino made a Batman movie? They don't just exist in some writer's head. They're a little too out there. If you'd like me to keep making more, please share this with all your friends. I hope you enjoy them.